In a world where everything is kind of mechanical and mechanistic or electronic, I like to change the date by hand every morning. And I do it on this lovely calendar, as you can see, 12th of June. And it is 2018. So long ago since another specific date in June. June the 6th, 1944. The Allied invasion of the beaches of Normandy. Allied, we fought together. Us and the Americans, the Canadians, Empire troops, the French, so many of the world's population were represented on that incredible, terrible, cruel day. The day on which so many human lives were lost. A day that we should rightly remember. Maybe not a day that we should glorify, but we should remember. How far advanced would the troops have been by now? I imagine the Mulberry Harbours, which we know were set up later, would probably have just about been coming online. I know there was a tremendous storm, and I know they advanced through the Normandy countryside into the kind of hedgerow country, which the French called bocage, that made it very difficult for the tanks to operate. And we saw all kinds of ingenuity and everything, but we saw a lot of human death and suffering, and we saw brutality, and we saw what had to be done to defeat fascism. I'd like you just to stay with those words for a moment, because that fascism that we fought to defeat has been rather well expressed on British streets, hasn't it? Do you remember the EDL and Free Tommy Robinson and the little EDL troglodytes doing the straight arm salute? Can you remember that? Do you feel safer knowing that you're being defended by EDL fat troglodytes? Do you feel good knowing that possibly relatives of yourself, maybe even your parents and grandparents, fought for the liberation of the world from fascism, German imperialism, Nazism? Do you feel safe now, knowing that people equate this liberty with Nazism? Is that not a bit ironic, seeing the straight arm salute defending freedom of what? Freedom of speech? Defending freedom of speech for a person who's now, quite rightly, locked up for being in contempt of court. Yet I don't only want you to think today about those troops advancing and bringing freedom to so many people. I don't only want you to think about how later they liberated the concentration camps. What I want you to think about is the frightening spread of fascism under various guises in our world today. Now, sure, of course, it's easy, isn't it? We can see the EDL as little jumped-up Nazis. We can even laugh at them with their beer guts and their bare chests and their cross of St. George and their patriotic chanting and their stuff like, "We got to get the Reds." We can look at the hard men and we can think, you like to look hard, but you're a group of thugs. What worries me is that fascist elites, such as Hitler and the Nazi, the Nazis I should say, have always needed thugs. Think about it. Read your history. Look at Rome, the leading Nazi at the time, and the brown shirts. Look at Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. Look at the rather sort of middle and upper class Nazi party members who, after all, needed those people to do their dirty work. Needed them to beat up people on the streets because they were Jewish, they were intellectual, they were left-wing, they were homosexual, they were lesbian, they were gay, they were a religious minority that the Nazis didn't like, and by the way that included Jehovah's Witnesses as well. So the brown shirts, English equivalent the EDL, were quite prepared to do the rather respectable Nazis' bidding, and Hitler loved them for it. Well, of course, until he felt they became a little bit too powerful and bunked off Rome, who was found in bed with his gay lover. It's scary. And it's not just scary because of the EDL. No, it's not just scary because of them. Maybe we can deal with them on the left. I don't know. We need to counter-protest them, of course we do. Maybe we can deal with them, yeah, but they're not scary, really. The scary ones are the ones who really have power. Power over life and death, in fact. Your Tory MPs who vote for programmes of economic and eugenic cleansing. Your Tory MPs who weaponise economic murder against people like myself and my wife, who are physically and mentally ill. Let me tell you a story about mental illness from a personal perspective. The Tory government are always telling you, aren't they? They tell you time after time after time after time, we're funding the NHS, it belongs to the people, we've put billions into it. Even in Waveney, in Great Yarmouth, they'll tell you they've put billions into mental health beds, acute units. It's a lie. They're closing acute mental health beds in this area. Let me tell you what happens when you get referred, quite rightly so, by your GP to the assessment team because you're having a mental health flare-up, like my wife, or you're having some kind of wobble with your mental health that needs professional help. Yeah? Let me tell you where you get passed on to by this team. You get passed on to Visit Mind. Okay? Or if you don't visit Mind, come to our recovery college training. But first of all, you're signposted to an NGO, Mind, a non-governmental organisation. Not an organisation staffed by trained professionals in mental health, but a voluntary organisation. An organisation that has actually voted with the government before and even considered putting work coaches and mental health specialists in GPs and job centres. An NGO, a non-governmental organisation. And even when you say to them, look, that's not going to help, I need help beyond what they can provide, you just get told the same. Let me see. is this another kind of eugenic cleansing that is going on? I believe it is. Maybe not directly through the hard workers in the NHS and the people who really do try to look after our mental health, the wonderful doctor who made the referral to that team, other members on that team. Maybe not, certainly not directly through them. But the health service, particularly mental health services, with the kind of shitty society Tories are creating, with the economic murder that they are committing with people like myself, my wife, and other disabled people, the system can't cope, and they're now using NGOs, non-governmental organisations, to supply services which taxpayers and national insurance payers have paid for, in some cases, all of our working lives. Going back to where it all began. Tory fascism. Tory fascism. Always scapegoat, target the weak, target the mentally ill, target the old, target the unhealthy, target the homeless, target the different. Oh, and of course, don't forget, target some migrants. Yeah, you know, on D-Day. Yeah, we were trying to sort of stop racism and, you know, disability, hate crime, and everything. But no. Now, apparently, the whole of Britain wants to join them and use them for targets, scapegoats. Don't forget, all those years ago, what those advancing troops were fighting for when they took the first steps towards freeing Europe. Because fascism, and it's dangerous, is back in vogue all over again.